Krsna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda.
Hare Krishna, welcome. You have happened upon the channel Bhagavad-gita. Here it is. We call it that because here it is, Bhagavad-gita as it is. Commentary and translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and my name is Labanga Latika. We're reading the third chapter, and I hope you can hear me because my throat is acting up a little bit today, so my voice isn't all it could be. But I hope we can manage. So this third chapter of the Bhagavad-gita is called Karma Yoga, and it's all about activity, understanding activity, which isn't all that obvious without the underlying spiritual understanding of the Bhagavad-gita. So today we are starting on text 36. Arjuna Vacha Athakena prayukto yang papang charati purusha anichan apivarishneya balad iva niyoditaha. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? Purport. A living entity as part and parcel of the Supreme is originally spiritual, pure, and free from all material contamination. Therefore, by nature, he is not subject to the sins of the material world. But when he is in contact with the material nature, he acts in many sinful ways without hesitation, and sometimes even against his will. As such, Arjuna's question to Krishna is very sanguine, which is a word I'm not familiar with, so that may have come out wrong, as to the perverted nature of the living entities. Although the living entities sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act. Sinful actions are not, however, impelled by the supersoul within, but are due to another cause, as the Lord explains in the next verse. So, yes, the concept of sin is maybe not something we are facing on a daily basis. And in the Vedic tradition, I understand it as a practical matter. It's more a pragmatic view of life, papa and punya, piety and sin. It's not so much a question of condemning everybody who is a sinner, but it's more an understanding. Some activities give us a better karma and some give us a worse karma. And as Arjuna is mentioning here, in that culture, this is known. And we can take some more ordinary examples. We see that people sometimes want to change something. Maybe they are smoking cigarettes. Of all the vices in this world, cigarette smoking must be the most pointless one. Because it gives you problems. You will smell bad. Your health will be bad. You will spend your money. Every new year, people sit down and decide, yes, from now on, I'm just going to eat healthy, I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to stop smoking. And then they are nervous wrecks and very annoying to be around, and their family kind of want to support them, but it's very difficult. Because breaking that habit is very difficult. But why is it difficult? Why would anybody want to do something as silly as smoking cigarettes? I'm sorry, all smokers out there. We love you, but smoking cigarettes is ridiculous. So that's how we understand lust. Lust is the desire, that strong desire that compels us against our own best interest, against our own intelligence. It's kind of like a separate force. And Arjuna's question is very intelligent. Because he knows the reality of things. In this material world, it's not enough to have some kind of a vision, some kind of a goal. We also have to understand what are the obstacles and how do we overcome them. And in spiritual life, I don't want to get into that type of terminology. Sinful, don't sin. But it is a word that is used. It is papa, it's that word is used there. But it doesn't mean exactly the same thing. It doesn't mean all the bad people are sinners. It means some activities are more of a problem in human life and especially in spiritual life. So we come here and we lose touch with our original spiritual identity, and we get the view of reality becomes warped. Just like when they have these still, I think, the funny houses, you go in the amusement park and they have very weird mirrors, and you look in them and so maybe you're really tall, or maybe you just look you just have hands and feet, the middle disappears. So that's how we look at reality when we're in this material world, because we are covered by this kind of an illusion. So as long as we don't have another goal, we can be here, we can take our karma, we can go up and down. But when we come to the point where we actually want to realize our spiritual nature and want to get serious with our spiritual practice, then it is very good to understand what are the obstacles. So therefore Arjuna wants to know, why is it like this, and what do we do about it? And therefore we go to the next verse, and Krishna will speak about it there. Text 37. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Kamaesha Krodaesha Rajyoguna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyanam Ihavairinam. Also, for those of you who are studying the Bhagavad-gita in the systematic way, this is also one of the core verses, and if you like, you can learn it by heart. So Krishna says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. Yes, so the word here is kama. And lust, sometimes we think of it mostly in a sexual connection, but lust, it's actually kama, means desire, means this strong drive for something that becomes almost like a force of nature. And this is the answer to Arjuna's question. And I will read a little bit more. Purport. When a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. Or in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust, as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues to material existence. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity, and it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. Wrath is the manifestation of the mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as wrath and other corollaries. If, therefore, the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness, by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. Yes, so this is actually the bigger picture. We can speak about lust. We can also avoid speaking about lust, but we find in religions these things come up, and then when we are moving into the modern society, we can't relate to it because society has changed, the way we live has changed, and these ideas, they seem old-fashioned. But if we want to go back to the origin of everything, the soul, Krishna, why we're in this world, and particularly how we get out of this world, then suddenly these concepts become relevant again. Because lust is not something that exists on its own. The description here, it's very beautiful. The eternal love of Krishna is transformed into lust. And similarly, when we practice bhakti yoga, we can go back again. Because as a living entity, the goal is not to give up desires, to push down desires, to become separated from our desires. Rather, we want to come back to understand, what does desire mean for the spirit soul? The spirit soul has no interest in enjoying material objects in this world. The spirit soul has another drive. That drive is love. The spirit soul is not just passively sitting around in a spiritual existence a little bit like a picture. We see pictures of angels. They just sit there. They look very pure and beautiful. But what do they do all day? That used to be my question when I heard about Christian religion, because Christian religion is very much, we respect it very much. Jesus Christ, we respect him as a pure devotee. But the descriptions of what the spiritual world is like are lacking. We don't hear very much about it. We hear mostly about that we're supposed to be there. We're supposed to be connected to God in service. We're supposed to regulate our lives here, and then we will be rewarded by heavenly existence. What that means, they're very vague about it. Krishna is not being vague. He's not being vague at all, because in Bhagavad-gita he doesn't maybe elaborate so much on it. Fact is, the living entity in connection with Krishna, that love, that desire to serve and please Krishna, to see him, to hear about him, to connect with the other devotees, to talk about Krishna, to arrange different, depending on your mode, different things. You cook for Krishna, you sew for Krishna, you dance with Krishna. So many things you can do for Krishna. And there's a strong drive of pleasing Krishna to the point where we don't have time, we don't have interest for smoking cigarettes. So yeah, the best way to stop smoking cigarettes is to start to serve Krishna, because that is much more compelling. Because that's compelling on the level of the soul, on the level of the heart. But if we just in a sentimental sense get the idea, oh, I'm going to be spiritual now, I'm just going to love God. But we don't take into account the nature of this world, the nature of the senses, the nature of our connection in this, how we desire to enjoy and connect in this world due to our identification with this body, then we won't know what to do. And we also won't understand why it doesn't work to just have some idea or some thought that sounds good and pure and spiritual, because we don't have knowledge, we don't see reality as it is. So the real reality, of course, is we're spirit, soul, we're eternal servants of Krishna. But the present reality is that we're not acting on that. We're acting on our material identification in this material world. And when we are disentangling ourselves from that existence, it is very helpful to have some understanding of that nature, of those mechanisms that keep us here. And this karma, this powerful desire, it's important to understand it so we can deal with it. We don't want to be just condemning everything that isn't spiritual. We also don't want to be naive and pretend that there isn't a problem, because obviously there's a problem. Look around in the world and you can see there are so many problems, and they are based on this false ego, and they are based on that transformed love that now has become something else. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expands himself into many for his ever-increasing spiritual bliss, and the living entities are parts and parcel of this spiritual bliss. They also have partial independence by misuse of their independence. When the service attitude is transformed into the propensity for sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. This material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill these lustful propensities. And when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about the real precision. So that's human life. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now is the time to inquire into Brahman, into spirit, into the real reality. So even when we are in that illusion, running headfirst into material enjoyment, life after life, we pick up something from it. We come to a point where we realize the futility and we turn inwards, we turn to God. But when we do that, we need this understanding also, so that we can handle the process in the right way. This inquiry is the beginning of the Vedanta Sutra, wherein it is said at Hatu Brahma Jigyasa, one should inquire into the Supreme. And the Supreme is defined in Srimad Bhagavatam as Janma Jasya Yaton Vayadi Taratas Cha, or the origin of everything is the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, the origin of lust is also in the Supreme. If, therefore, lust is transformed into love for the Supreme, or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. Hanuman, the great servitor of Lord Ram, exhibited his wrath by burning the golden city of Ravana. But by doing so, he became the greatest devotee of the Lord. Here also in Bhagavad-gita, the Lord induces Arjuna to engage his wrath upon his enemies for the satisfaction of the Lord. Therefore, lust and wrath, when they are employed in Krishna consciousness, become our friends instead of our enemies. So yeah, I was a little hesitant to go into this verse because, as I said, this concept, lust, what do we do with it in a modern sense? But what we really want to do is we want to understand it from a Krishna conscious perspective. We want to understand how the soul, we are not condemning lust. We are just realizing that when that propensity of strong desire and attraction is channeled through our senses, through that bodily concept, through that bodily identification, it comes out in the wrong way and it binds us further and further in this world. So our interest is not to put up a list of moral ideas that this is good and this is bad, this is good, this is bad, but we want to come to the point where we say, Atata Brahma Jigyasa, what is the actual truth? What am I? What is the supreme? And then when we get some information on that, we want to act on it. We want to start a practice, a spiritual practice that has some actual results, some actual realization. And in that process, the more we know about the obstacles, the better off we are. And here, lust is an obstacle, but it is also a distorted reflection of the nature of the soul, of that eternal love of God. And we read it here. We have quite a short, my episodes here are short because it's the internet. You can't sit here for hours and hours. But really, this is such a practical and beautiful way of looking at life in this world, because this is the little bit the difficult thing to understand. How do we do it, spiritual life in the material world? So here is one of the great tips coming from Krishna himself to help us succeed in this spiritual life. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.